What's going on, guys? My name is Noah, and I've been hospitalized with rhabdomyolysis, or rhabdomyolysis. Anyway, it's a dangerous condition that happens right on time. So it took me forever to set this up, and we're just going to silence this for a minute. It's my IV having run out, needs to be replaced. I want to share my story about how I ended up in the hospital with rhabdomyolysis. I want to share my story as to why and how I ended up in the hospital with rhabdomyolysis in case it could offer any comfort, support, and information to someone else who might be going through it. And ultimately, I'd like it to prevent other people from having to experience what has been a very, very tough experience for me. So I will try to detail this quickly, and I thank you for your time. So it started for me Tuesday, December 5th. I'm a CrossFit athlete. I participate in the CrossFit programming. I also do some CrossFit coaching. And we had a movement on the board called butterfly pull-ups, which is a CrossFit skill. And it's a skill that I'm going to go ahead and put on the screen right now to let you see what happened. So it's a brand new movement that I'd never been able to accomplish before. It's fairly dynamic, and your body is under constant tension, particularly your forearms and your biceps. I made a classic mistake on Tuesday, and I implemented a brand new move without having any idea how it would impact my body. And I'm competitive and I'm aggressive, and I just went for it. So I ended up doing 60 butterfly pull-ups. There's tension on the muscles, on the upper part and the pull, and on the release. And it deeply inflamed my biceps and my forearms. Upon completing the workout, I had trouble straightening my arms. And I was in a lot of pain, but I've been sore many times. I've been doing CrossFit for a couple of years, and I wasn't too worried about it. So I rolled it out, stretched it out, moved on with my life. Oh, I'm sorry. I left out a very important detail. Tuesday night, I decided to drink pretty heavily, and that further dehydrated my body, which would play into how I ended up here in the hospital. The next day, I was in a tremendous amount of pain, a lot of soreness, but I still chalked it up to just being very sore as it being potentially damaged or injured, so to speak. And I foolishly and ignorantly decided to warm up extensively that same night, now Wednesday, and I did another workout that entailed not too many, but maybe 20 or so chest to bar pull-ups, which were aggressively reactivating the exact same movement pattern of the butterfly, where I was already very, very, very sore. And then we did some overhead lunges and some burpees. Wednesday night after the workout, I was incredibly sore, more sore than I could imagine. That whole night I was sleepless. I could barely lift my arms. They were stuck in this position right here. It's like this. I couldn't move them. It was very overwhelming and very painful. And I barely got a minute of sleep that night. Thursday, I tried to rehab them. I was consistently trying to open my arms up and stretch them, and I couldn't. And my arms were beginning to swell. And that's when I started to get worried and nervous. Thursday night, I decided to take myself to an urgent care. They did some blood work, ran some tests, but the most important test would be a CK test, which is a creatine kinase. I think I might be saying that wrong, but essentially, in layman's term, a test to see if too much muscle fiber or muscle protein had broken off from my damaged muscle and began to flood my bloodstream, which can be problematic for your kidneys. That is the whole essential function, including the risk of high levels of myoglobin in your blood. That's what rhabdo is. And from a layman's perspective. So I went to the urgent care. I was nervous. I was in so much pain, and they told me they wouldn't have my blood work back anytime soon, maybe a few days. Because of my past understanding of rhabdomyolysis, or rhabdo, I'll just be referring to it as, I was panicked by that, and I had another horrible night's sleep. I was reading some horror stories, and I was scared. And so I was fortunate that I was still peeing clear. One of the things they want you to look for as a potential major sign that you have rhabdo and that your kidneys can be in serious trouble is dark urine, Coca-Cola colored urine, which I didn't. I was pushing fluids at that point. But I had my primary care call in a stat lab order outpatient to a hospital for CK. I went to lunch with my mom. I was very anxious in my head, very nervous about the implications of this, but assumed I was being overly worrisome. That is my nature. And the labs came back an hour and 20 minutes later as being over 20,000. Depending on the reference range, CK, again, essentially the muscle fibers in your body, in your blood, should not be more than about, 100 to 300 depending on the range. And mine were over 20,000. The particular lab I went to didn't have a range above that. And that fear that I felt when that lab order or that lab result came back, I can barely explain. I started to shake. I knew about this, but I didn't know just how much trouble I was in. And because of my propensity to catastrophically think, I very much thought there was a chance that I would not be surviving, that there's a chance that I would go into what's known as renal failure, that my kidneys would shut down, causing my liver to shut down, causing me to die. And my mom was with me, and tears filled my eyes, and my voice became shaky, and I started thinking about my wife, and I started thinking about my life, and I started thinking about my poor choice to not listen to my body, which is something that I always encourage other people to do in CrossFit. I just felt so silly, and I immediately started thinking what I would need to say to people, the goodbyes I would want to make. I went straight there. That's how scared I was. I checked in the ER. I remember looking outside one last time, just looking around at the world and being like, I hope I get to walk out of this hospital. I have a history of depression, so I've been admitted for suicidal behaviors and suicidal tendencies with major depression, and it was the same hospital, same ER. The flashbacks were horrendous. So luckily the nurse I first saw, she could see that I was fighting back tears, and my voice was shaking. She told me not to worry and that I would be okay, and that she's known many people have come in with rhabdo and done just fine, that I did the right thing to come in. So what they immediately did was they tested me for my kidney function and my liver function, because they already had the lab value for my CK level, which again was dangerously high. And my kidney function came back great. My creatinine level was like 1.1, and in other words, it was functioning well according to the labs, which is great. It was coincided with the good ability for me to avoid building up to getting there, pee, and it also made sense with the clear urine, because I was already pushing fluids. It didn't bring me much relief though, let me tell you. And they got me up to a room. I'd be remiss to leave out the fact that my liver function was also not super great, but they didn't think that had anything to do with this. They thought that had to do more with potential binge drinking issues, which brought up a whole other self-assessment, like partying too much. But anyway, back to the matter at hand. They took me to a room, and they immediately started pumping me with 1,250 cc's of fluid, IV fluid. So saline with salt and sodium bicarbonate to help alkalize my body or my blood, to make sure that not too much of the myoglobin and the CK could bind, I believe, and create a potential backup in my kidneys. That first night was horror and hell. I had my wife with me, and I can't tell you how scared I was and how humbling it was to be that afraid for my life, and how much I didn't want to die, and how not ready I was, and whether that was dramatic or not, that's the experience I had, and it was really scary, and I wanted to share it with you guys in case you're in the same boat. So that first night I barely slept. I was up every 15 minutes, a half hour, either peeing, getting blood work done, having my vitals checked, and being interrupted by nurses coming in, which was fine. I made a pact to myself that I would not make a peep. I would just try to compose myself enough and let people work and make sure I was okay. I had certain nurses that were incredibly kind, and they kind of sensed my trepidation. I had other nurses that, only one or two, that may have had some bedside manner that I might avoid next time. Like one of them, asked me the situation. I updated her, and I said, but my kidney function seems to be okay, so I should be okay, right? She goes, well, kidneys can turn really quickly, is the words she used. So I was fighting panic, and it was a bad night. That night I requested a 0.5 milligram of Klonopin, this being Friday night, and I was able to get some broken sleep from there on. I did another blood draw at 8 a.m. and it showed that my CK levels were still above 20,000. But it did also show that my kidney function was good, and I met with an internal medicine doc who told me that a guy my age who's able to produce what they wanted, which was ample urine, they want to flush out those kidneys, he had no doubt that I'd be okay. We just had to be cautious, keep an eye on my kidneys, and continue to flush out the CK. We didn't know how high it was, but it was comforting to hear him say that if my kidney function was this good at this point in the game, especially after about 24 hours or so of treatment, it was unlikely that things were going to suddenly take a turn. Not guaranteed, but unlikely, and that did help. Reassurance was something I sought like crazy, and that's another thing I will mention. This whole situation reduced me to like a scared child. I lost a lot of my sense of self and my ego and my pride. I just became scared and just woeful, and I needed a lot of reassurance, and so that helped me a lot. They continued to push fluids. I continued to void 300, 500 mLs at a time until they lowered my double IV to now what it is, 250. And then I had people visit me, and it was comforting. I've been fighting anxiety and sleep deprivation and brain fog and then fatigue, and my arms have been still in tremendous pain, but trying to stay occupied and just buy my time. And I'm so grateful for all the support and prayers I got. And as time has gone on, I've gotten less afraid. I've learned more about rhabdomyolysis, and I've understood that if you get treatment quick, it's a pretty fair chance that you're going to be okay. You just need to be aware of the side symptoms and what to look out for. Last night, by the way, on like Sunday night, I was feeling really anxious, almost had a panic attack. I had to do some square breathing and some breathing exercises, feeling overwhelmed, not sure what I'm feeling. I went from being like in a normal routine and structure to being stripped of like all my normal routine and structure. It's been pretty difficult. But again, I'm just grateful to be alive. I really am. And really excited to have a chance to go out in the world and do better and learn from this. But Sunday morning, the update being, or Monday morning, this morning, the update being that my CK level finally dropped to 19,600. So we are officially on the bubble of what they can actually quantify, which brought me so much relief and so much hope. They dropped me down to a single IV now of just I think it's like a plasma with electrolytes and or just normal saline sodium. I'd have to look. The point is, it seems like I'm going to be okay. I'm getting mobility back in my arms. Showering has been difficult. Using the bathroom has been difficult. The whole thing has been really difficult and humbling. And I just wanted to update you guys and let you know what's been going on with me. I've had a lot of time to think, and one thing is for sure, I was taking my physical health for granted. I certainly didn't mean for this to happen, and I will learn from it. I also want you guys to know that I'm not trying to throw CrossFit under the bus. I'm the first reported case in my gym's history, but it does have me more mindful of the fact that we need to listen to our bodies in CrossFit because we're doing high intensity training with often major volume and certain movements. We have to be careful and listen to our bodies and be careful with new movements and not, try to avoid these situations because they can be mostly avoided. And I also want to say that rhabdo is real and it's dangerous. And if you're concerned that you might have it, you go get those CK levels checked. You don't take a chance on it because, there's no coming back from renal failure, and that's the ultimate risk. And it humbled me, and I'm very grateful to still be here. So the nurses are taking good care of me, and my family's taking good care of me. My wife has been incredible. She slept next to me on my bed. She's been interrupted all night long for the last 3 nights to support me, and that's what I needed. And I'll tell you one thing, I'm very accustomed to blood draws now. Couldn't care less about blood draws. I've had like 10 or 11 since I've been here. I will try to be humble and more careful and less egocentric in the gym because this could have been really bad. And I don't, the pessimistic part of me is like, you're not out of the woods yet. I'm still plugged in, but I think we're going to be okay. I'll update you guys when I'm out of here, maybe make some other reflections, do a video about rhabdo to help further educate people on it. CrossFitters do need to be mindful of this. They told me here in the ER that it's mostly CrossFit folks that come in here, which makes sense. It's mostly former athletes as well that have not worked out in a long time and then come back. And but I didn't think I would be susceptible because I'm relatively fit in CrossFit. I've been doing it a long time, and I just didn't know that this sort of thing could happen to me. So if you have a story about rhabdo, share it. I can't tell you how comforting it has been just to read rhabdo stories of people overcoming it, what their stories were. I don't know what my CK levels were, but the doctor this morning and I are guessing maybe 40, 50,000, 60, something like that. It'll be interesting to know what it drops to, God willing, tomorrow. Anyway, that's all. That's my story. That's why I was hospitalized with rhabdo, and I'm not ready to die. So I better start treating this body like a temple or something. And I have to pee again. Adios, guys.